Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to read the article from the center out loud and give you some hints on what to write down for notes. Speaking of notes, you should be aiming to take at least 3 bullet points or more worth of notes. And this week's notes should really focus on the pros of going to Mars or just space travel in general, and the cons of going to Mars or space travel in general. Now, we know this article is from the center, and the article that we read on Tuesday from the left was a little more pro space travel. So they mentioned more pros. The one from the right was a little more con space travel, so they mentioned a few more cons. So we can safely guess that because this one's in the center, we're going to get some pros and some cons in this article. Starting with the title, NASA rover attempting most difficult Martian touchdown yet. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and skip the location, start right here, spacecraft aiming. Spacecraft aiming to land on Mars have skipped past the planet, burned up upon entry, smashed into the surface, and made it down amid a fierce dust storm, only to spit out a single fuzzy gray picture before dying. Almost 50 years after the first casualty on Mars, talking robot casualties here, NASA is attempting its hardest Martian touchdown yet. The rover named Perseverance is headed Thursday for a compact 5-mile by 4-mile patch on the edge of an ancient river delta. It's filled with cliffs, pits, sand dunes, and fields of rocks, any of which could doom the $3 billion mission. The once submerged terrain could also hold evidence of past life, all the more reason to gather samples at this spot for the return to Earth 10 years from now. While NASA has done everything possible to ensure success, there's always this fear that it won't work well, it won't go well. Arissa Stilley, sorry if I mispronounced your name, Arissa, a landing team engineer, said Tuesday. We've had a pretty good run of successful missions recently, and you never want to be the next one that isn't. It's heartbreaking when it happens. Before they go into a look at the latest mission, we can kind of go ahead and write down at least one bullet point worth of notes based off what those first 3 or 4 paragraphs are focusing on. And they're really focusing on the dangers of this mission, how it could be really dangerous or risky. Maybe more risky is a better phrase for it. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, and it would cost us $3 billion because it was a $3 billion mission. So a lot of risk and a lot of money has gone towards this mission. Okay, a look at NASA's latest mission. Mars Master. NASA has nailed 8 of 9 landing attempts, making the U.S. the only country to achieve a successful touchdown. So you could go ahead and add on to that first bullet point of notes that you took, talking about the risks, the fact that out of the 9 landings, the U.S. has made 8 of them. So even though it's risky, this mission is in good hands. China hopes to become the second nation in late spring with its own life-seeking rover. Its vessel entered orbit around Mars last week along with a United Arab Emirates spacecraft. The red planet's extremely thin atmosphere makes it hard to get down safely. Russia has piled up the most lander losses at Mars and Mars's moon, Phobos, beginning in early 1970s. The European Space Agency also has tried and failed. 2 NASA landers are still humming along, 2012's Curiosity rover and 2018's InSight. Launched last July, Perseverance will set down some 2,000 miles away from Jezero Crater, descending by parachute, rocket engines, and sky crane. The millions of lines of software code and hundreds of thousands of electric parts have to work with precision. There's no go-backs, there's no retries, Deputy Project Manager Matt Wallace said Wednesday. They're just kind of highlighting the risk involved with this mission. Go ahead and move on to the second part, toughest landing. NASA has equipped the 1-ton Perseverance, a beefier version of Curiosity, with the latest landing tech to ace this touchdown. The new autopilot tool will calculate the descending rover's distance to the target location and release the massive parachute at the precise moment. Then another system will scan the surface, comparing observations with onboard maps. The rover could detour up to 2,000 feet while seeking somewhere safe, Neil Armstrong style. Without these gizmos, Jezero Crater would be too risky to attempt. Once down, the 6-wheeled Perseverance should be the best driver Mars has ever seen, with more autonomy and range than Curiosity. Percy is what they call Perseverance. Percy's got a new set of kicks, explained Chief Engineer Adam Stelzner. and she's ready for trouble on this Martian surface with her new wheels. Okay, so we can go ahead and add a new bullet point worth of notes talking about the improved technology, talking about this piece of equipment, this Perseverance rover, like just has more improved technology, so that way they're more likely to land safely and minimize the risks as much as possible. Looking for signs of life. Whether there was water, there may have been life. That's why NASA wants Perseverance snooping around Jezero Crater, once home to a lake fed by a river. It's now bone dry, but 3.5 billion years ago, this Martian lake was as big and wet as Nevada and California's Lake Tahoe. Perseverance will shoot lasers at rocks judged most likely to contain evidence of past microscopic life, analyzing the emitted vapor and drill into the best candidates. A few dozen core samples, about a pound's worth of rock and dust, will be set aside in sealed titanium tubes for future pickup. Okay, so we can go ahead and add a bullet point. They're talking about how this mission isn't just going to help us now, but it's also collecting samples for the future missions. So it's kind of like preparing for the future as well. All right, 2 more sections. Scroll down for you guys. Round trip ticket. Scientists have wanted to get hold of Mars rocks ever since NASA's Mariners provided the first close pictures a half a century ago. NASA is teaming up with the European Space Agency to do just that. The bold plan calls for a rover and return rocket to launch to Mars in 2026 to retrieve Perseverance's stash of samples. NASA expects to bring back the rocks as early as 2031, several years before the first astronauts might arrive on the scene. The rover's super sterilized sample tubes are the cleanest components ever sent into space, according to NASA, to avoid any contaminating traces of Earth. Okay, so there's 2 things that I kind of noticed in this article or in this section where they say that this is a bold plan. That kind of reminds me of the bias that we saw in the right-leaning article yesterday when they called Elon Musk's plan very ambitious. So they're saying that, ooh, this is bold, like maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But then it kind of adds here at the bottom explaining the like science behind it or like how they're doing this in a smart way. All right, last section. COVID-19 precautions. Speaking of clean, NASA's Mars Mission Control has never been so spotless. Instead of passing around jars of peanuts right before Perseverance's landing, a good luck tradition going back decades, masked flight controllers will get their own individual bags. It's one of the many COVID-19 precautions at California's Jet Propulsion Laboratories. The landing team will be spread over multiple rooms with NASA's bigwigs and journalists watching remotely. Launched last July, the aptly named Perseverance bears a plaque honoring healthcare workers battling the virus over the past year. Okay, so that last section doesn't really have to do a whole lot with outer space. If you really wanted to take a bullet point worth of notes from that section, you could go ahead and say that this mission, however, is honoring healthcare workers with that plaque.